We're delighted to have two very special guests on This Week in Virginia. Many of you may know them by name, and some of you know them personally, but you're going to meet them today and find out the work they do. But our co-host, Angel Miner, is going to introduce them and start with some of our initial questions. So, Angel?
Thank you. Today we have Maribel Castaneda, Director of Board of Appointments, Secretary of the Commonwealth, and Director of the Latino Outreach. And we have her assistant, Sean Soares, who is also the Director of the AAPI Outreach. My first question starting out for you guys is, what sparked your interest in joining the outreach programs and your position that you are in right now?
Yeah, thank you, Angel, and thank you, David, for having us. I became very interested in working for state government at a very young age. I loved learning about government since I think 7th grade. So I've always really have been interested in giving back and being in public service. After college, I went and worked for Richmond Public Schools. And after about 2 years, I decided to transition out. And at that time, Governor Northam had won the election. So I applied during his transition period. And so Secretary Thomason found my application. I came in for a chat, and the rest was history. I think the board appointments team is a very, it's not very well known what we do, but we do a lot. We're a very small team that handle a lot of different questions around the Commonwealth. And so really my interest in supporting where I could and learning more about state government was just such an honor. A few years in, I was also appointed to the Director of Latino Outreach, where I also support community engagement and the Latino leaders around the state. So that's also been a great area and focus of mine, as I am Latina as well. I'm originally from Mexico. And it's been great to really support and provide resources for the community and for the community to have a point of contact within the governor's office.
Well, thank you for the question. So I started out in politics and government, working as an intern for Congressman McEachin. And that was kind of where I got introduced to constituent services and really helping people and some of the constituents there. After that, I was legislative assistant for Delegate Suhas Subramaniam in the General Assembly. Also had a little bit more experience there working with constituents and getting some of their state resources and helping them solve problems or any kind of stops with state government. So that's where I first got my experience. And then after the General Assembly session in 2020, I was only a session aide at the time. Secretary Thompson and Deputy Secretary DeShazer gave me a call for an interview, and that's when I was appointed Special Assistant for Board Appointments and Director of AAPI Outreach. And I got to say, the outreach part has definitely been one of the most fulfilling parts for me. Mainly just keeping a pulse of the issues going on in the constituency and making sure that you're there for them. You're there as a resource for all the constituents in that group. Just recently, we did a listening tour where we sat down with community leaders in different cities across the Commonwealth to discuss the rise in AAPI hate crimes. Doing that has definitely been one of the most fulfilling parts of my job.
You touched on it a little bit, Sean, but what are some of your favorite projects that you worked on this year?
Doing those roundtables after such a horrific event that happened in Atlanta was definitely something that I took charge of. And, we had 6 successful events that were set up in just 3 weeks' time. And so it was a lot of hard work, but it was definitely good work, and I'm glad we got that done. But we're not done yet. AAPI Heritage Month is actually starting next month, and so we'll have a few more events and stuff set up for that one too.
I think some of my most memorable moments have been really connecting with individuals on the ground, going to most recently vaccination clinics that are targeted for minority and underserved communities. And I think also just trying to speak with them in their time of need. There's been a lot of gaps in communication recently. So those have been some of my memorable things to really work on, is really engaging and finding opportunities and ways to connect people with their state government and the resources that we have available. Another great project of mine that I had the opportunity once I was appointed Director of Latino Outreach was back in 2019. We stood up the first ever Latinx summit for Governor Northam. So that was a great opportunity to, as it was halfway through his administration, kind of update the community on what we've been doing for Latinos around the Commonwealth. So I'm looking forward to hopefully another one before we wrap up the administration. I know 2020 was very hard to stand up a lot of different types. So just trying to evolve and be there for as many people that we can has been just such a great honor.
My last question before I give it back to Mr. David. How can students, high school, college students, get involved in outreach programs?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. This is probably one of my most favorite topics to talk about too, because I really believe in building the pipeline for the next state leaders. I want people to become passionate about public service, even if they don't work directly in public service. And this is another segue into what we do with appointments, but I really recommend high school students to reach out to people that are serving them in different capacities. It could be their city council, their board of supervisors, really be interested and ask questions, because the government is here to serve you. And so really there's going to be people that are very passionate like I am. Whenever I have students that reach out to me, I love talking to them about how I got to where I am and how they can also follow these next steps. There are also different types of opportunities like internship opportunities in their communities that they could look into. One that's not necessarily that for high school students, but is more for college students is the Governor's Fellows Program, which we just made the final round of selection for those. And that's this prestigious program where students can come in and really learn about state government, how the executive branch works in a very intimate setting. They're really members of the administration and work on some really neat policy issues. So that's a program that is ran every year. It's for rising seniors and graduating seniors. So that is something that you could look into and maybe work toward. Really look at different, the last thing I'll kind of point out is really look through different college majors. I went into college originally as a political science major because I thought that's what I was really interested in, but ended up switching to international affairs. So there's just such a broad range of backgrounds that exist within public service. You don't have to necessarily be government or a history or a political science major to serve. And so really looking at what you're interested in and seeing opportunities that are out there in your local, your state, and even federal level. So.
And I'll just add to what Maribel said. I will say, one of the most helpful things I can say is just put yourself out there, try to apply for those internships, try to join the various clubs at your university or high school that may interest you. If there is no club, you can always start one, and that's, make that legacy for yourself there. But yeah, just put yourself out there. If you were to get an internship, try to schedule coffees with everyone that you work with. I know even as an intern before, I was scared of asking people to go on a coffee and give me some tips and advice. But thinking back, I wish I did it more, just because looking at myself now, I'm always happy to get coffees with interns or people that just starting out their professional career and just helping them as much as I can. Yeah.
Thank you all. It's great to hear what you're working on right now, some of your projects, and something about your background too. And my gosh, you two have done a great deal, and I only have been out of college a short time. So very, very impressed. Let's dig into the matter of appointments. I think it was 4 years ago that Secretary Thompson was on the show, and talking with her, we were discussing the fact that when you get to the fourth year of a governor's term, the matters of appointments are a little different than they were year one and even year two. So you're into year 4 appointments. So I want you to talk some about the application process, the nomination process, the vacancies. I'll throw all of that out there for you all to pick up on the part that you would like to start with, but to really help people now who are watching this. And I'm going to make sure that it gets to many different associations and organizations that may not watch every one of our shows, but they've got to watch this because they need to know what's possible for nominations and for appointments in this last year of the governor's term. So Maribel, you start, and Sean, you jump right in.
So I've been a part of the appointments team pretty much since the beginning, since 2018, March of 2018. And you are completely right, David. It is a different year this year. We have a little bit more of, not a sense of urgency, but we do want to leave this administration with no vacant seats. We understand that we have to push our timeline up a little bit. And so we are being very strategic this year in understanding who is in the applicant pool, who are the nominations that have come through within the last 3 years, so that we can develop a good plan when we come to those seats. And so most of our board seats come up in mid-June. June 30th is usually the time we get a little bit hectic around the office. Our busy season is from June to around August or September. So right now is a perfect time to get your application in if you're interested. We actually, our administration kept all the applications since McAuliffe. So we have applications that go back as far as 2014. And we have made appointments for people that applied that far back. And those are some really great phone calls that I've made, like, hey, I know you applied back in 2016, but do you want to serve? And most often they'll say yes. But we do have applications in. If you have an application and want to update your information, just send us an email and we're happy to do that so you don't have to go through the application process again. We're looking at about a little over 900 seats for this year. And the interesting thing about this year is no year is ever the same. The General Assembly loves to create boards as they like to take away boards. So just earlier, right before I jumped on this call, I added 3 new boards for that were related to the cannabis legislation that got passed. So we are looking for more individuals, more board seats. And yesterday as well, Sean and I went to the bill signing for the LGBTQ plus advisory board. So that's another brand new board that added 21 new members that we'll have to find individuals for. So please know, even though we'll leave at the end of this administration, there are always new boards that are being created each year. So just keep a lookout for them. And this period, between January and May is a really great time to get your application in, be nominated. If you have any recommendation letters, they're not required, but if you would like to submit them or have somebody recommend you, this is the time to do that. Our board, our website, we've done a lot of great work to reduce barriers and make it more accessible for people to find what the board vacancies are. We've cleaned up a lot of how you're able to search things and took away some things from the application that really weren't relevant. So I think we've done a great job. There's still more to do. We're always looking for ways to improve, but I think the process is very streamlined now. And Sean and I are always here for questions. We go to many events and we talk to so many people. Like, please reach out if you have any questions. And you'd be surprised how very few people actually do reach out. So we're here to support.
Hey, thank you. Sean?
Sure, and I'll just add a little bit for the application process. So if you go to our website, which is commonwealth.virginia.gov, you can see a list of all the current vacancies we have and the seats coming up this year. You can see in detail what the eligibility is for each seat. You can also access our Kelly Blue Book online, which will give you a brief overview of what the board does, how often it may meet, who's currently serving on the board and how many seats are coming up. We also do take nominations, so you're able to nominate someone else for a seat on a board, or an organization can nominate someone as well. And just to add, one of our top priorities is diversifying our boards to make sure that they reflect the people of Virginia. And so, that is one of our priorities. And I will say that the Northam administration has appointed the most diverse members to boards and commissions so far. So I think it's a good success that we celebrate.
We'll make sure that we get that website address up throughout the show, and people, if they click on it, then they can see just what you're talking about the, and they can check that. As someone who loves history and even about the history of appointments, it's interesting that the Blue Book, and I was searching in the office for one of the old ones, but gosh, if I had one, it would have been for decades ago, because they now are online instead of made available that much in print. But you can see the Blue Books showing all the people that were appointed in a given year. But that's about history. The rest of it is about I would say, current events, and that is the opportunity to apply and to be considered for an appointment for any number of the boards. And I do know, and I hope it doesn't happen to you all in July and August, but I know that sometimes in year 4, staff are really searching, because you have opportunities that maybe no one has applied for. So I point that out, saying, I hope it doesn't happen to you all, but I pointed out to say to people, if they're thinking about applying, don't think that, well, there may be 20 other people that want this, I'm not going to apply. You may be the one who applies who really gets chosen. Now, are there some age restrictions? Does someone need to be 18 or a certain age, or and I think Sean maybe said that you can find about specific boards if there's something specific, but anything in general that you would say, Maribel, about age? I know you're looking for diverse. You're probably looking for ones in their 20s, but how young can someone be and apply for one of these boards?
That's a fantastic question. The short answer is there's no age restrictions at all. And when Sean talks about diversity, we mean that in all the broadest senses. We want geographic diversity, industry diversity, gender and age diversity, and ethnicity as well. So we have appointed, I think, while I've been here, we've appointed somebody that's, I think the youngest person, maybe 18, maybe 17 at that time. I know a few years in the past, Governor McAuliffe had his Millennial Civic Engagement Task Force that was targeted for college students to participate and be a part of. So there are opportunities. There's no age restriction at all. We do have a vetting process that we go for, but there's really nothing that we do that would maybe be a barrier or prohibit you from applying at all.
Sean, did Maribel leave you anything else to say on that? Did she cover it?
No, I think she got it. And just to get more specific, there are some seats actually that require you to be like under 24 or under a specific age. So there are specific seats like that which you could think about applying for if you would meet that eligibility.
As Maribel, I think you said you're always looking for ways to maybe improve the online part. If it's not there, just a thought, there may be helpful to know if someone could click on and see what are the positions for underage so-and-so, or because I think there will be some university students. I don't know who Angel's going to tell about this, and so you should look into it, to be able to find the ones where you really are looking for people that would be in their 20s or in their upper teens. There's probably not a way to do that right now. You'd have to check board by board to find it, right?
So there is no age restriction for any board. That's a great idea, David. I'm taking a note of that to see if there's a way that we can really encourage our young people, our college students to apply. I think one area I would recommend right now, we support the advisory boards for the governor's office. There are, I believe, 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but we have a Virginia Latino advisory board, Asian American Pacific Islander Advisory Board, African American Advisory Board, Council on Women, and now the LGBTQ+ Advisory Board. And the member that I was talking about who was appointed most recently, that was, I think, 18, just finishing her freshman year at UVA, was appointed to the African American Advisory Board. So the advisory boards are another great suggestion that I'll put out there. We're looking for folks that are in different backgrounds, like I said, different age. So as we just put forth the LGBTQ plus advisory board, and that's on our application page, that's one I would recommend young people apply to, as well as we start building this board of 21 new members.
And if you didn't get that list of 5 that Maribel just said, when you go on the website, down at the bottom of the page, you will find logos, and you'll find each of those. So they are right there prominent. So you won't have to listen to this part twice. Just go on the website and you'll be able to find that. Maybe say a little bit, Sean or Maribel, about advisory boards and policy boards, because some of our viewers know that. They've been around state government a great deal. Others, maybe particularly among the younger ones, might not know what's the difference in an advisory board and a policy board.
Sure. I'll let Maribel talk about policy boards, but to give you an overview of advisory boards, for the most part, they, like in the name, advise the governor on some of the issues that that specific board supports. I know, for example, the Asian Advisory Board, they have different subcommittees. They have a business and trade subcommittee and a health subcommittee where they talk about the issues of that specific constituency. And then every year they compile an annual report, which they give to the governor, which will have recommendations that the governor can take to support that constituency group.
Policy boards. Maribel?
Yeah. And just to piggyback on what Sean said, so advisory boards also advise agencies, they advise directors, they can advise a lot of different individuals. The boards that we support with, they advise the governor since they're executive, since they're the governor's advisory boards. So switching over to policy boards, another name I like to give them to are regulatory boards. So if you think of anything that requires a license in Virginia, the nurses, barbers, real estate agents, any industry that requires a license has a board that really supports and helps to regulate that industry. They promote public policies, so they're there to protect the public and the people. So if there's any malpractice or folks that have licenses that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they go in front of this board of their peers, and they're, they talk through what happened with the situation, but they really are there for policies and regulation of those industries. So they're among my favorite boards. So Sean and I have different portfolios. A lot of those boards tend to fall under commerce and trade or health and human resources, where we do have a lot of individuals, a lot of licenses in Virginia. So those boards really support in helping make those decisions that protect the public's interests.
I'll make a comment too about those licensing boards in case someone's saying, well, I'm not in that particular profession, but every one of the licensing boards has at least one, usually 2 citizen members. I'll go way back to the Blouse administration and disclose that I served as a citizen member on the board of funeral directors and embalmers. And that particular board, to their credit, was the first board in health professions that had citizen members. I think the Board of Medicine may have been the last to finally, until all of those licensing boards have citizen members. So if you have some interest in dentistry or in speech and audiology or in counseling or whatever it would be, and you're not in that profession, those boards need citizen members. And check that out too. I think you'll also find that some boards have a requirement that you be in a certain part of the Commonwealth. Some of them are geographic. And so you can dig into it and you can find out. And you all have given a great deal of information. And before our show would wrap up, there's probably something else that Angel and I haven't asked you about that you might want to add in. I want you to do that. And then we want to get this out there and have people coming to that website and then contacting you. Any closing thoughts that you would have? And Sean, I'll start with you on this, and then Maribel ask you to wrap it up. Sean?
Sure. I do want to go back on your point about some of the citizen members, because people, for the most part, don't know how many boards do have citizen members. You might think, why would I, apply to the Board of Dentistry? I'm not a dentist, I'm not a dental hygienist, but you can get some real good policy experience and bring your citizen expertise to that board and bring your outside perspective. And there's a range of boards that have that. Going back of some of the geographic eligibility, I can't tell you how hard it was for a long time to find a physician who's in the first congressional district for one of our HHR boards. So, it's some of those boards, it's we don't get too many applications. So, I would just leave you all with challenging you to kind of dive a little deeper into some of the boards that we have. Usually when people try to apply, they may go for some of the bigger, more glamorous boards like the Board of Education or something like that, but really try to dig deeper and maybe, look at the Council on Aging or, the Board of People with Disabilities, some of those really niche boards that we don't get too many applications for. So your chances of getting an appointment are probably elevated.
Thank you. Mary Bell?
Yeah, I'll just leave you with a couple of points. I think, so each board is very unique and all of these boards are public, are out there for the public to know about. So every board has a website. They have to post when their meetings are. They have their list of board members. So I always recommend when individuals are interested in different types of boards to do a little research, look and see who's on the board, what their backgrounds are, the work that they do, how often they meet. All of this is public information. So just take some time. One board I always like to highlight is the Milk Commission. What does the Milk Commission do? Well, they make sure that the price of milk is priced fair in Virginia. And so if you're interested in learning more, you can go to the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services that has all of their boards up. So really, these are not, these boards are opportunities for you to really serve and represent your interest areas. We want people to really support and be a part of their state government. And this is just one way to do that. So I really highly recommend doing a little bit of research, go to our application, don't overthink it, just apply. This is the last year that Sean and I will be here. So we're really excited to finish out strong and have a great applicant, a great diverse applicant pool to identify people for. So please reach out if you have any questions as well. And thanks for having us, David.
Yes, well, Angel and I thank the two of you, Mary Bell and Sean, for what you're doing and for your taking time today to lay it out there so people can learn more about the appointment process. And this is year 4, and this is the time for people to make themselves known if they have interest in the board. And I do think, and I should have asked you this, I believe you'll find out that they can maybe list more than one board when they're applying. Is that right? I know it way back in past times, you can maybe list 3 different options. Let me ask you that before we wrap it up. Mary Bell, can you put more than one board down that you're interested in, or more than one advisory board?
That's a great question. Yes, you can select up to 4 boards.
Oh, excellent.
And if you have more that you're just very interested in and want us to consider you for, email us and we'll just add those to the back end on your application. So you do not have to submit 5 applications or more.
Right.
I've seen it happen. So just reach out to us.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you both very much for being on This Week in Virginia, and best to you in these busy months that are coming up in 2021. Thank you.